today we want to start on share capital and see if we can manage that capital as well. So every company that is limited by shares must have a share capital. And this refers to the amount invested in the company for it to carry out its operation. You remember we talked about the shares that you as an individual or another company buys. For the company, you provide funds. And these funds enable the company to operate. So the memorandum and articles of association provide for the different classes. You remember we talked about ordinary shares, preference shares, as well as equity shares. So these conditions and these classes are provided for by the memorandum and articles of association. The Companies Act, being the guiding law, has provisions, it has guidelines that we saw as we were doing membership and shares, the obligations of each class of shares, the provisions, what the company will do, calling you for a meeting. It will also declare dividends. So those are guidelines set out by the Companies Act, but they are not set on stone, which is why we have the memorandum and articles that enable a company to be able to customize according to their needs and the objects that they have come up with, so that they're able to ensure they have enough funds to carry out their operations. So we have various types of share capital. That is the nominal or authorized share capital. And this is what is set out in the memorandum that is provided to the Register of Companies. This figure shows the maximum number of shares the company is authorized to issue and the nominal value of each share. But it does not indicate how many of these number have been issued and how many have been paid for. Remember, we talked about the formation of a company. The memorandum will provide if this company has a nominal share of 1,000 of 1 shilling each. This is what is provided for in the formation of that company. This information is what will be at the registrar, but it will not have how many have been paid for, how many have been issued out there. Then we come to the context of issued share capital. So some or all of the share of the nominal capital, it must be issued in return for cash or the transfer of non-cash assets. So what is more important is not the nominal. The issued share capital is more important to the company, since once you issue, each shareholder is liable to pay for the price of shares issued to him. And this is basically what we say it's a guarantee, because you are supposed to pay up to the extent of the shares that you hold. So even when a creditor is dealing with your company, they focus on the issued share capital. They may not be bothered much with the nominal, since it doesn't relate to money. The issued, you as an individual, a company, if you have, we also talk about called up share capital. And we talked about liability of the members of a company limited. And its liability is to the shareholders, limited to the amount, if any, unpaid. And practically, companies require fairly prompt payment of issued share capital. So when you don't pay, a call is made, and called up capital equals the aggregate of the calls made on shares. A call is made to that person holding shares that he has not paid, and if he's not able to pay them, then they are reissued again so that the company can be able to fund its operations. That is what we mean by called up share capital. Paid up share capital is the sum total. You remember we talked about the issued share capital. If it was not wholly paid up, then once the company ascertains this amount of shares were issued and they were paid out, and the total nominal value of these issued shares, and unless some shareholders refuse to pay, the paid up capital will be equal to the called up capital. Where you're called up to pay, it's normally equal. But again, issues may arise whereby those called up to pay are unable to fulfill the obligations. Probably issues to deal with the current status of the economy, or maybe a change of mind that was not indicated to the register of companies. So ideally, a called up share capital should be equal to a paid up share capital. We have the uncalled share capital, and this is the difference between the amount already paid up and the total nominal value of the issued shares. We have the nominal, what we have said is in the MEMATs. We have the called up and we have the paid up. So what is uncalled? This is the difference between called up, the amount paid up, and the nominal, those ones that were authorized by the memorandum. And it's again unpopular because investors don't want uncertainty. Investors want when dealing with a company, they are sure that the company is able to pay up its obligations. And in case it exists, this uncalled capital, it's a guarantee for creditors who can only gain access to this amount in the event of liquidation. So they can't rely on it as long as the companies are going concern. But once the element of a company is wound up, then it may form a guarantee. But it's not something the company wants. They want to be able to be liquid. They want to be able to trade with the amount raised from this selling of the shares. We also have the reserve share capital. And for this, in order that the guarantee fund referred in uncalled share capital can be removed from the director's control and made more permanent, a company may, by special resolution, determine that it shall only be called up in the event of winding up. And this special resolution is irrevocable. The reserve share capital is known as a reserve liability, and it is specifically for this uncalled share capital. It's a guarantee, and it is removed from the director's control. It forms a booster, so to speak. It forms a cushion in the event that the company is unable to continue with its operations.